What's up, Guardians? I hope you have all been enjoying Renegades as much as I have. I wanted to make a video today to talk about our blaster weapons that we have because I've been enjoying these blaster weapons. They have definitely been a highlight of this expansion, as they should be with the whole new blaster system that they've brought with us. But the two frames are a bit more complicated and a bit more interesting than I think I thought they were going into the expansion. Now, obviously, I saw all the previews talking about how dynamic weapons dissipate their heat more passively and balanced weapons don't, and the perfect reload and all of that. But I wanted to kind of dive into the specifics around each of these weapons, talk about how much more damage they do than their contemporary counterparts with bullets. And I wanted to lean a bit more into the reload mechanics and get into a bit more detail about that and bring you that information today. Now, everything I tested is on this Warlock build here with 148 weapons, so there is a little bit of damage increases going on here. But for comparing all the weapons to each other, it doesn't really matter all that much because they're all coming off the same increased weapon damage. So there may be some errors in what you will see due to rounding, but the actual increase for the weapons themselves should remain pretty consistent. And you'll see that a little bit later when we look at the spreadsheet and I show you some of those numbers. But to get started, let's talk about our two weapon types for blasters. First off, we have, I totally misclicked, the M17 Fast Talker here, which is a balanced heat weapon. Now, this is currently the only balanced heat weapon we have until the dungeon comes out, but this does increase damage versus powerful combatants, which is true for this heat weapon type and dynamic. They both do more damage against powerful combatants. And the balanced has low heat generated, and when you do a perfect vent at very high heat, you get a greatly increased venting speed. So I'll show you that really quickly. And what you'll also see is that passively, this does not decrease your heat very quickly. You can see kind of there, that bar in the bottom left, that the heat is dissipating, I think 2% per second, give or take, which is much lower than some of our other weapons. I'll show you the sidearm really quick just so you can see that bar decrease on the bottom left. And that is just the way the balanced weapons are made to be. Once you are using these, all you're really trying to do is get into that 90%, and work at about 89% as well. But once you hit 90% and you get to that shaded in section on the bottom left, or if you're looking at the reticle and you aim it out in sights here, you'll see the bars on the left and right. So once you're in that top section for the top 10%, if you hit reload, you'll get a perfect vent buff, and you'll see that it dissipates heat very, very quickly. So again right here. Whereas if you were to do that just at 85 or something, you'll see it takes quite a bit longer to dissipate that heat. So I want to say it's about double the rate of cooling, which means once you get to that lower part of the magazine or the higher heat, you're getting a half reload time, give or take. Now, the other thing about this that is relevant is you can cancel that at any point here, but you'll see at the very end, there is this other highlighted section on the left where the stock is in the ammo counter. This has no bearing on balanced weapons other than being when you can fire after you overheat. So you'll see if we let this go and it gets down to that little section, you can start shooting immediately. You don't have to wait all the way till 0. You can go a little bit sooner than that. And this is true for dynamic weapons as well. But if we look at the dynamic, if you look at the bottom left section on the weapon itself for the frame, you will see not only does it do more damage against powerful combatants, but also just has higher base damage. And this is compared to other weapons of the same archetype, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You generate high heat per second, but this does cool down more rapidly between shots. I'll show you really quick, like we said, with the SMG, you'll see this goes down much, much faster than the SMG's rate, which means if you're using this on something where you're going to be swapping onto and off of very often, you basically have a little bit of built-in reconstruction on the weapon, so you don't have to manually vent this all the time. You can let it just go on its own and it will do it in your back pocket. However, something you will notice, if we go up to this high heat again, around that 85, you'll see, same roughly time to vent there. And then if we go into that high heat zone, if we get to that over 90, you will not get perfect vent. Perfect vent is not a thing on these dynamic weapons. They do not have that mechanic. So you'll see it, we'll go back to the balance weapon again just so you can see what it looks like. That's the speed for perfect vent. And these do not get it. Not even like a hidden version, which is what I was looking for at some point just to see if it worked but didn't say it. that is not there. What you will see on the reload bar, if I do it again, on the left part of the lower ring on the reticle, you will see a section that highlights that section that matches that 10% heat on the left side of the ammo meter. Right there. And so while this does mean if you go in here, you can go in and you'll be able to cancel the reload there, what you'll also notice it does is something that I didn't realize at first, I didn't see many creators talking about, is you will get a buff for canceling the reload there. And this is that dynamic heat limiter that you'll see in the bottom left here. Now sometimes when you do this, it will give you a buff and let you stick it in your pocket until you shoot again. Sometimes it won't and it'll immediately activate. I don't know what the trigger is for that. But when you have dynamic heat limiter in the bottom left, once you start firing or whenever the timer starts, you'll get roughly 5 seconds of the buff. And during that time, you will generate half the heat when you fire your shots. If you watch my heat bar here while I dump this sidearm, you will see it takes much longer to get to half heat than usual. We'll just go off of there just to overheat the thing. But here we'll see, we'll just dump it again. You can see how quickly we get to overheat. And then if I just shoot immediately, as soon as I get to that highlighted zone and get the dynamic heat limiter up, we can dump basically double the mag. And I went through and I tested this, and it's about double the mag size, a little bit less because you are still generating heat. On average, let's say it's about a 70 to 80% increase on your mag size, except for things that fill up your heat bar really quickly. Like this sidearm, this is pretty close to a double. But something like the hand cannon or the special ammo hand cannon are closer to 80% because they just generate heat a bit slower than the sidearm does. So if you are playing a dynamic heat weapon and you're not doing the auto-loading thing by putting the weapon away to let it heal passively, or let it reload passively rather, this is one way to play with the heat weapons, right? But if you don't want to do that, this is your primary and you're trying to use it all the time, you have your own reload game to play that matches the balanced weapons, but is basically inverted. You're playing to cancel the reload at the right time instead of triggering the reload at the right time, if that makes sense. And for that, I think this is a very, very fun weapon type to play with now. I've been doing this for a couple of games. I realized that while playing Hunter in my second campaign playthrough that this was happening, because I didn't really play with many dynamic heat weapons, and when I did, I wasn't looking at the buff bar. So when I was testing things out in the firing range on Hunter to see what I could use with Lucky Pants, I noticed this was happening and I was really confused as to what it was because it's not explained anywhere. So just so you are aware, this mechanic does exist. It will give you better DPS over your magazine. And for weapons like this sidearm and the hand cannon and all these primary ammo dynamic weapons, if you're popping, a half reload at 50% or even lower, as long as you're reliably in a place where you can hit this dynamic heat limiter, you can greatly increase your uptime on how long you're shooting. Because you get no benefit for going all the way up to 100 before you go ahead and trigger this reload. You have to wait longer to get to that dynamic heat limiter because there is no perfect vent on this. So you can do this all day and you will never get to that faster than you would if you just trigger it about 40%. You say you're close enough to the heat level that you want and you know you can consistently hit it around half. Just go ahead and keep doing that and you will, over time, just maintain a higher DPS because you are getting that reduced heat generation. Now, if you want to have some tips for how to hit that, if you are looking in the bottom left, you can try and cancel it when you get behind that yellow bar in the ammo meter, or you could look at your hipfire reticle. You will see it in the hipfire reticle as well. It is pretty easy, I think, to do with that as long as you're used to looking at that lower section instead of what you're actually looking at. Not too bad. And then the third option is if you are looking at your gun, if you are the kind of person who looks at the gun, your magazine will flash white when you are able to do it. But on this sidearm, it's very close to the front of the mag. The front of the gun, you'll see the little heatsink. Flashes red there, and you'll see it flash white. We'll do it again here. We'll do it with half charges so you can see. Flashes white. When it flashes white like that, that means you are in that zone to get the dynamic heat limiter. So you have 3 places you can look at to see when to shoot, or when to cancel. Because you can get this by shooting the gun in that time, you could sprint, or you could do whatever else will stop you from shooting. I think you can like melee, cancel it as well. I'm not sure what stops it from triggering immediately. I haven't really found out a consistent way to make it not start the timer immediately. I know it's possible. I've seen it stock buff, but it just doesn't always want to stock it. Now, on top of that, the weapons themselves have different ways of functioning than their base counterparts, right? They all do different damage numbers, and some of them have little special quirks that I'll show you in just a sec. Let's talk damage. For the most part, I've gone through and tested all the damage numbers here. So here you can see, when we're looking at our damage numbers, generally, you're going to be looking at close to 20% bonus damage over the regular counterpart. There are a couple of exceptions here. One is our one balance weapon, and this is what I'm going to anticipate we're going to see on all our balance weapons going forward, which is compared to its lightweight frame, which it does look like it copies the lightweight frame. So against red bars, your balance weapon is doing about 4% more damage, and whether that's custom tuning or not is up in the air, but it does do more damage. And against bosses, which will be against Carl and etc., you are doing 20%. And I think that is the blaster default. I think the blaster number is 20% more damage to majors or higher, because once you get down to the dynamic weapons, which we have our hand cannon primary, our dynamic 360 sidearm, our dynamic pulse rifle, all of these against red bars have different numbers, but they are all over 30% for majors / bosses, which should multiply out or combine with their regular base increase. And you will see kind of a pattern here with the red bar increase versus the boss increase. Looking at the hand cannon primary, you have about a 20% increase over red bars. Same with the pulse rifle, it's about 21% over red bars. And then sidearms are about 15%. This one seems to be the outlier. For the dynamic weapons, it is only 15% instead of 20% or higher. But yeah, it's still decent DPS. Obviously a huge increase over their red bar killing potential of the normal versions. Basically, you can consider them having built-in damage perks, right? This is Frenzy built in, 2 stacks of Rampage on both of these already included for your damage numbers, and then you can stack on top of that. And when we're looking at bosses, we are looking at closer to 31% for the sidearm, 35% for the pulse, and almost 40% for the primary hand cannon. I think that's all very significant numbers. And for something like hand cannons, when you're using Lucky Pants, this 40% really does add up for your total damage for your primary ammo. So for a swap thing, this is really what you want to be looking for. But what you want to consider is, now that you know that all these dynamic weapons are able to do enhanced reload that reduces their heat generation, this damage increase is more relevant the less you have to reload. Our special hand cannon does have high damage per shot. Obviously, it's much more than all the primaries. But I don't really have anything to compare it to, because the only other special ammo hand cannon is Ariana's, and it is not a 180. They're different archetypes. Their damage numbers are totally different. The fire rates are different. But I didn't want to just go ahead and compare them 1-to-1 because it didn't really make a ton of sense. But for just additional information, when I was testing the dynamic reload on the special ammo hand cannon, I went from 12 shots to 22 shots. And I have a, I think it's like a tactical mag or tactical battery, the one that really enhances your mag size but reduces the vent speed. That one got 10 extra shots over the regular version without doing the reload. And the pulse rifle with nothing on it goes from 36 per magazine to 60 per magazine. And that seems like a really good place to be for these heat weapons. So I really like this little mini game that is on these dynamic weapons that I haven't really seen people talking about. And I do like the balanced SMG as well. It's just a lot more straightforward to balanced one. It makes sense that it works. It is great. I really enjoy all of them. But now that I know how the dynamic ones work, I can start playing with that more and really form an opinion and see how that affects my damage output. The last thing I really wanted to show off here is the dynamic hand cannons. Both of them, the special ammo and the primary, I have learned to overpenetrate. So if I go grab some green really quick for you, you can see if I line up the shot here, I will go ahead and penetrate multiple targets. I have seen up to 3, just depending on how the wave spawns and where the shot goes. I actually think it worked better with the training dummies, but we're on Scions, so you get some Scions who are trying not to line up. Yeah, there you go. Killed 3 with 1 shot with that. And you will see this does much the same, killing 3 there. One of the damage numbers didn't show up, but you definitely can overpenetrate with these, and I tested the other weapons. None of the others seem to overpen. I did not see it with the SMG. You know, nothing happening there. The pulse rifle also did not do it. So I don't know if this is just a hand cannon thing. I tested a regular hand cannon. Word of Crota doesn't overpen. So special thing for the hand cannon ones, they do overpenetrate. It is not a dynamic thing. It is not an energy weapon thing, or sorry, a blaster thing. It is just unique to the blaster hand cannons. So that does add to its ad clear, right? If you're shooting a big group of thrall and you are overpenning, like that does reduce the time you're spending fighting those enemies. As you can see now, I have the dynamic heat limiter that is permanent. It's not starting with the timer until I shoot. Don't know how it got there. Overall, have you noticed that this dynamic heat limiter thing beforehand? Have you used it? Have you been playing around it? I noticed it. I couldn't figure out what it was causing and what it was doing for the longest time. Until I came to the practice range and I was just messing around for like an hour, and I got it to activate on accident, and I started realizing that it was this section at the end when you're dissipating your heat. So I think that it should probably be on the weapon card. It doesn't say that that is a thing on here, unfortunately. But I do think this is a really, really cool mechanic. And it makes it way more interesting than I thought they were originally, compared to the balanced ones for like the at the SMG, because I really like this mechanic as well. The top it off for a perfect vent for double reload speed is also very, very fun. Let me know what you think down below, and I will see you all again very, very soon.